there exists this concept or principle that, if we looked into it, would completely destroy the discipline of psychology. The reason it would completely destroy that discipline is because modern psychology is entirely a function of the thinking mind, the rational mind. It's pure rationality, and because it's pure rationality, that means it's completely empty, it's completely hollow. It's a thing that appears to be a thing, but when you look into it, there's nothing there. That's how it is with all rational constructs. That's how it is with anything that is made out of logic. And we can understand this. We can understand why all logical constructs have to be empty, just as soon as we can understand bootstrapping. And bootstrapping isn't a hard thing to understand, it's just unfamiliar to us within this context. Bootstrapping has been popular in physics, and then it became unpopular, and then it became popular again, and I don't know what the current state of play is. But bootstrapping is basically, in the simplest form, you could say, where there is two elements, and these two elements create each other reciprocally in such a way that without the two of them you couldn't have anything. So the one gives rise to the other, and then the other gives rise to the one. A kind of related idea could be the idea that of a person who is his own father. If I am my own father, I give rise to myself, but then because I'm my father, I also will, instead of just being a son, I will turn around and give rise to myself. So I give rise to myself, and then I give rise to myself. So that's bootstrapping, pulling myself up by my own shoelaces, which is an improbable act. This idea first came out in physics. Well, technically speaking, it came out in Buddhism first, a few thousand years before that, but in its most well-known form, it came out in physics. And so this is a respectable enough way of looking at things. Lots of physicists have sat down and wrote about it, and they haven't objected that it's stupid or this could never work. We can't say that about bootstrapping. We can't say that it would never work because it's perfectly logical. Coming from the understanding of bootstrapping in physics to it's how it's talked about in Buddhism, we can say that everything that is based on thought, everything that is defined, everything that we can talk about and know stuff about, has to be polar in nature, which means it has to have a beginning and an end. It has to be delineated. The fact that everything we think about has to be polar, has to exist within the remit of polarity, means that it is subject to bootstrapping. It got there via bootstrapping, and it apparently persists due to bootstrapping. And we can see this when we think about any polar concept. So if we take a ladder, we make a mental picture of a ladder. We can either go up the ladder or we can go down the ladder. It has a top and the bottom, a plus and a minus. So bootstrapping means that the bootstrapping means that can't exist without down, and down can't exist without up. So as soon as we create up, we have created down, strangely enough, because we've created the opposite. We didn't mean to do that. And as soon as we create down, we have created up. And by the same token, if we try to just have the one and just have the up, because in terms of our everyday psychology, we like up. It corresponds to feeling good, feeling euphoric. So that, that corresponds to climbing up the ladder to the very top, being on top of the world, feeling that one is at the top of the world. And so naively, it comes naturally to us to assume there must be some way of having the up without the down. We don't see that up and down are mutually conditioning. We don't see that they're both needed to create each other. And so we persist in this absurd notion that there is such a thing as an up without a down, or euphoria without dysphoria. And then we spend our whole lives trying to obtain this phantasmagorical creature, this mythological creature, this thing that doesn't possibly exist. We spend the rest of our lives looking for it because we think that's what the secret of life is to find this unreal mythological kind of a thing called an up without a down. So the first thing we can say is that there is no up without a down, obviously, because the reality of up versus down, which is the logical continuum, has been bootstrapped. It comes about because of both up and down, both plus and minus. So you have to have both for it to exist at all. But having said that, we say we have to have both up and down to exist at all, and yet at the same time, because this thing, this polarity that is made up of up and down, is made up of two things that negate each other, two things that perfectly cancel each other out. The thing comes into being as a result of psychological bootstrapping isn't really a thing at all. It's a trick. It's a bubble. It's like a soap bubble. It comes into being, just as Plato says, the world comes into being, one opposite from another. It comes into being, but it doesn't really come into being because it is at all times perfectly empty, because it cancels itself out. It is at all times perfectly hollow. So if we were to entertain this way of looking at things, if we were to get interested in it, we would see that we're really wasting our time trying to say anything meaningful about the world that is created by thought. And the world that is created by thought includes ourselves, the idea of ourselves, because we operate as the idea of ourselves, not as who we really are. That's just the way it is. If we wanted to operate as we really are, there's a lot of work in that. The default is to operate on the basis of who we aren't, to operate on the basis of a concept of ourselves which is polar, and which is therefore entirely hollow.